Hey guys, what's up? It's Cynthia here, and today I am bringing you my May wrap-up. In total, I read 14 books, 3 of which were 2 stars, 2 were 3 stars, 5 were 4 stars, and 5 were 5 stars, and one of those was a reread. So I'm going to be telling you about those books in order from my least favorite to favorite of the month, so let's get right into it. The first book is Otherworld by Jason Segel and Krista Miller, and I gave that one 2 stars. I wasn't a fan of the way that the main character talked about females, and honestly, the jokes that were made in it made me very uncomfortable. You could tell that it was trying to be similar to Warcross and Ready Player One, but it just did not succeed. I think that it missed the point on basically every aspect. I just really didn't enjoy my time reading this, and that's not to say that if you enjoyed it that you're wrong, but I just couldn't deal with the main character and the way that he talked about females and just sex in general. It was weird, and I did not like it. The second book here is The Earth, My Butt, and Other Big Round Things by Carolyn Mackler, and I ended up giving this book 2.5 stars. I talked about this a little bit in my Scallywagathon vlog. I felt like the representation of bigger women wasn't very well done and was kind of offensive. I kind of write that off to the fact that this book was written in 2003 and the view of women's bodies as well as the way that they're spoken about has changed a lot in those 15 years, but I just had a hard time getting past that. So this book is still very enjoyable, and I'm glad that there is some more representation of bigger characters in books. So I do recommend checking out this book if you're looking for a good plus-size character, since that is something that is kind of missing in this market today. The next book was The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins, and I ended up giving that book 2.5 stars. I didn't really have a lot of issues with this book. It was just the fact that I wasn't very surprised by anything. I felt like a lot of people, when this first book came out, they were saying how shocking and surprising the ending of the book was, but I kind of felt like I saw it coming, and that's not something that is good in suspense thriller novels. So for that fact alone, I give it a 2.5, but it was still really enjoyable, and I do see the potential that the novel has. The next book that I read was Scrappy Little Nobody by Anna Kendrick, and I ended up giving that 3 out of 5 stars. I found it really interesting to get to know more about Anna's life, and she actually narrated the audiobook, and that's what I listened to, so that was very enjoyable as I really enjoy her voice, and it feels more personable when it's read by the person who the book is actually about. I just wasn't particularly blown away by the writing, and it feels weird to rate someone's life story, but I think a 3 stars is fair for it because I did really enjoy it, and I do recommend checking it out if you're a fan of Anna Kendrick. The next book that I read was A Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and I gave this book 3.5 stars out of 5. I also talked about this book in my Scallywagathon wrap-up, so I won't really go into it here, but I just didn't really feel a connection with the main character, but it is highly enjoyable, and I do think that you should check it out. The next book that I read was Welcome to Night Vale by Joseph Fink, and I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not caught up on the podcast, so I didn't quite understand the whole depth of this world, but it was very enjoyable. I love the voice and the tone of the podcast, and this book very well sticks to it. I think that this would be a weird book if you have no context with the podcast, because it is just such a weird, fantastical place, but it is so much fun, and I loved it a lot. And for that reason, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next 2 books that I read were Paper Girls Volume 1 and 2 by Brian K. Vaughan, and I ended up giving both of those 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved the artwork in the book, and I thought that the story was a lot of fun. It was very unexpected because it was very sci-fi. I didn't know that going in, but it was a really happy surprise, and it really took a twist in the second volume that I love, and I cannot wait to get my hands on Volume 3. The next book that I read was Unbury Carol by Josh Malerman, and Josh Malerman actually wrote one of my favorite books ever, which is Bird Box. And while I didn't enjoy Unbury Carol as much as I did Bird Box, I still really, really enjoyed it, and I highly suggest checking it out. It has a really amazing atmosphere. It takes place in like a Western American setting, like an Old West sort of feel, and it's so weird and dark and creepy, but it is definitely worth a read. And also, if you haven't read Bird Box, please check it out because it is amazing. The next book here is Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas, and I ended up giving that book 4 out of 5 stars. I also talked about that one in my Scallywagathon wrap-up, so I won't really talk about it here, but the beginning was a bit slow, but the end really picked up. The first 5 star we have on this list is Leah on the Offbeat by Becky Albertalli, and I loved this book so much. I actually ended up remaking the cover, and I'll add a picture in here for you guys. I had so much fun doing it, and I had an amazing time reading the book. I related to Leah on so many levels, and I just think she's such a strong character, and I loved getting more of Simon because that was really special because it takes place, if you didn't know, in the same universe as, I guess you could say, the Simon verse, and it was amazing seeing Simon outside of Simon versus the Homo sapiens agenda. It's just seeing someone from the outside perspective is always really cool, because you just kind of get to see them in a new light. So that was a lot of fun. I think this book is really important, and I'm so glad that Becky decided to write it because it's amazing and outstanding, completely blew me away, and highly recommend reading it. My reread, which is also a 5-star read, is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell, and I don't really have a lot to say about it besides the fact that it holds a really special place in my heart because I read it at the same time that Kath was in school, and so I felt all the things that Kath was going through, and I just really related to her. And being able to read it now as someone going into my senior year of college and like look back at the growth that I've had since the first time that I read Fangirl, it was just a lot of fun, and I don't know, it was just really cool, and I really have a special place in my heart for that book. The next 2 books that I have here are equally amazing and definitely making it into my top favorite books ever. I was completely blown away by both of them, and yeah, I should definitely get into telling you which books those are. So they are The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood and Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. These books are amazing. You can't really compare the two of them, but the only reason I'm comparing them here is just for the fact that they're both in my top favorite books ever now. I won't say much about this book since I did talk about it in my Scallywagathon wrap-up, and this book is so powerful and such a scary reflection of what our world could look like today. And it's a read that's very important if you haven't checked it out because it's amazing. As for Children of Blood and Bone, I absolutely loved the characters. I thought that they were so well fleshed out, and I rooted for each and every one of them. I loved the world, I loved the magic system, and I'm not even a big fantasy reader, but I was totally drawn into the story. I'm more of a character-based reader, and I thought that the characters were absolutely amazing in this book. They're all my babies now, and I need to protect them and love them because the world's not going to do that to them, because the world is a mean place to them, can I just say. So yeah, if you read any of the books on this list, check out Children of Blood and Bone and The Handmaid's Tale. I had a really great reading month, and I read a lot of really good books and a lot of really meh books, but all in all, I'm really happy with all that I read. Let me know down below the books that you read this month because I love knowing what people read. And if you read any of these books, let me know so that we could talk about them down below. So yeah guys, I think that's all for me, and I will see you all next time.